Just about every piece of tech you own, your phone, your computer, even your car, it all starts right here, with a thin, shimmering disk of silicon. It's basically the bedrock of our digital world. But what if I told you that every single one of these wafers holds a secret? A hidden story of its own creation? Well, let's open the diary. So just picture that for a second. We're not talking about a diary with, words and paper. We're talking about one that's written into the very structure of the material itself, a super detailed log of its fiery birth. And look, this isn't just some cool metaphor. Learning how to read this diary, it led to one of the biggest, most important breakthroughs in the entire history of electronics manufacturing.
All right, so to really get this, we need to jump back in time a bit. Back to a huge mystery that was just plaguing chip manufacturers for years. It was all about this invisible past, a story hidden inside every single silicon wafer, and man, was it causing a lot of trouble.
Just think about this for a minute. You could make two silicon wafers that look absolutely identical. Perfect. But one would go on to make these amazing high-performance chips, and the other one? Totally useless. The whole problem was that manufacturers were treating the silicon like a blank slate. But it wasn't. In reality, it was already filled with this invisible history that was basically deciding its future before they even started.
And this is where the big shift in thinking happened. It was a total revolution. The old way was just assume the whole wafer is the same. One big, uniform thing. But then this groundbreaking paper comes out in 1985, and it proposes a pretty radical new idea. What if every single point on that wafer has its own unique story? That's the diary approach. It's not about the wafer as a whole anymore. It's about the unique history of each and every individual position on it. That's the key.
So, okay, how does this diary even get written in the first place? Well, the ink is basically heat. And the pen, that's the manufacturing process itself. The whole story gets recorded as the wafer goes on this incredible journey from a formless molten liquid into a perfect, solid crystal.
Let's break that down a little. So it all starts when a crystal is slowly, carefully pulled from this vat of molten silicon, and it's glowing at over 1400 degrees Celsius, just intensely hot. And as it's pulled up, the edges start to cool at a different speed than the center. This whole temperature journey, I'm talking the exact speed of cooling, every little fluctuation in heat, it all gets locked permanently into the crystal structure. That means every single point on that wafer has a slightly different experience, creating its own unique thermal history.
The analogy here is just perfect. It's brilliant. We all know how a tree's rings can tell you the story of its life, right? Good years, bad years, droughts. Well, it's the exact same idea here. These tiny, tiny imperfections in the silicon tell the story of its creation. It's a diary written not with ink, but with heat and time.
Okay, so we've established there's a diary, right? It exists. But there's a catch. It's written in a totally invisible language. So the next massive challenge, and this was the real detective work, was figuring out how on earth you're supposed to read it.
And that's the big question, isn't it? What do the entries in this diary actually look like? We're not talking about letters and numbers here. We're talking about something much, much smaller. So what are the actual words that make up this whole hidden story?
Well, here they are. Take a look. For years, scientists just saw these microscopic spots as flaws, random, unwanted defects you had to get rid of. But the huge breakthrough was realizing they weren't random at all. They are the language. They're the physical evidence of that thermal history. Every single tiny shape you see is like a word that tells you exactly what happened at that specific point while the crystal was cooling.
So let's just pause for a second and make sure we've got this key term down. Thermal history. This isn't some vague, fuzzy concept. It is the precise, measurable record of temperature changes that one specific point on a silicon wafer experiences. It's the data. It's the core information we need to actually read the diary.
Okay, so now we're starting to put the pieces together. Knowing the individual words is one thing, right? But to get the full story, you need to read the whole page. So the next giant leap forward was figuring out how to map that entire thermal history across the whole wafer. And that was the crucial contribution of that 1985 paper. It was like they found the Rosetta Stone. They gave us a method to decode all those microscopic clues and turn them into a complete, coherent map.
For the very first time, you could actually see the entire thermal history, all laid out and connected directly back to its exact position on the wafer. Now, you don't need to be a physicist to understand the power of what you're seeing here. Just think of this chart as one completed page from the diary. Each of those columns, that's a different position on the wafer. And the data in it tells its own unique thermal story. This is it. This is the invisible history finally made visible.
Which, of course, brings us to the most important question of all. So what? Who cares? Why does spending all this time and energy learning to read a silicon wafer's diary actually matter in the real world?
Oh, the impact was absolutely enormous. Once you could read the history, you could finally predict how a device would perform before you even made the chip. Think about that. This led to way higher manufacturing yields. So you're getting more good chips from every single wafer. It slashed waste, and most importantly, it built the foundation we needed to create the incredibly dense, powerful, and reliable chips that we all depend on every single day.
I mean, we're talking about a huge difference. Understanding and controlling this thermal diary became absolutely essential for hitting manufacturing yields of over 90%. Before this knowledge, failure rates could be incredibly high. This insight literally transformed chip making from what was kind of an art form into a precise, predictable science.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The entire story of modern electronics really hinges on this one idea. We had to become, in a way, material historians. We had to learn to read the secret diary written inside the silicon itself so that we could finally become the architects of its future and guarantee the performance of every single device.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to chew on, doesn't it? If silicon has this incredibly detailed diary, what about all the other materials around us? The steel in a bridge, the glass in a skyscraper, the plastics in life-saving medical devices. What other invisible histories are out there just waiting for us to learn how to read them? And what secrets do they hold for building an even better future?